Jeff Fuller with you. Can't even get my name right, but Jeff Fuller Interviews is where you can find more information. Talking basketball. My friend just asked me, how bad are you jonesing for basketball? And I said, I'm jonesing so bad that I started a YouTube channel to talk about basketball. And one that knows much about Vermont basketball is Aaron Hill. Aaron, glad to see you.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So you graduated from Hazen Union in 1992. When you look back at your high school years playing basketball, what are some of your fondest memories?
Well, so when I grew up at Hazen, when I was coming up through middle school, elementary school, our program was really not very strong. We struggled greatly. That was back when you had to win 8 games to make the playoffs. And when I got to high school, we hadn't made the playoffs in about 10 years. So we made the playoffs my sophomore year, and we ended up getting beat at People's Academy. But that was a big accomplishment for us at that point. And we were able to have a couple winning seasons, and probably our biggest win of the year was my senior year was over People's Academy, who we hadn't beaten in like 12 years. My friend Wayne Lafley was on that team. I just wanted to make sure I got that out there.
He brought that up. He said that he was 7-1 against you. So sorry to rub salt in the wound, but
yeah, oh yeah, no, but that was our big accomplishment at that point, was just to beat People's. And then as the years went by, we were able to kind of turn things around and had a lot more success.
Now, talk a little bit about Vermont basketball. I grew up here. My wife is from Michigan, and she finds it very intriguing, I guess, how from year to year you could change divisions, and not just the school, but a specific sports program. So you could have a boys team playing one division, a girls team from the same school playing a different division. Why is that? And would you like to see Vermont go to 3 divisions overall?
Well, at this point, we're getting close to where I think we need to go back to the 3 divisions, but I don't think we're there yet. But yeah, it's our girls this year at Hazen were Division 4, and the boys team that I coach, we were Division 3. So it's kind of weird, but I like the way they do it now better than they did before. Before it was based strictly on numbers. Now they divide it to try to even out all 4 divisions so that they all have an equal number of teams. Several years ago, it used to be there'd be like one division had like 9 teams in it, and one had like 22.
Yeah.
So now that they've done that, I think that's helped a little bit. But yeah, it's a unique thing. I like the 4 divisions for now because it gives a lot of the smaller schools more of a chance to compete. And I thought that the big move that they did a couple years ago by reducing Division 1 and moving the North Countries and the Spaldings and some of those teams that were having a hard time competing to Division 2, and it strengthened Division 2 and kind of all the way down through, I think. So that was a good move. We'll see if schools keep shrinking and losing more schools, we'll probably have to go to 3 divisions at some point.
Yeah, it's an interesting time in which we live, even before this pandemic. Aaron Hill, coach at Hazen. Aaron, when you grew up, did you play multiple sports? And when did you find out that you were good at basketball and you wanted to make a career with basketball?
Well, I played all 3 sports. Growing up, I grew up in a huge baseball family. My father was the varsity baseball coach for a long time at Hazen. My uncle before him was the varsity baseball coach at Hazen. And everyone around me was baseball people. And they played basketball, but that wasn't their passion. So I was a baseball guy through Little League, but then I hit a growth spurt and I hit 6'4", and then the basketball seemed to come a little easier for me. And although I was a late bloomer, and for me, when I was 14, I made back in the day when Vermont AAU, you only had tryouts. You had 1 state team that would go then travel to nationals and whatnot. And so I was lucky enough to make the 1 team when I was 14, and we went to Las Vegas. And I played for Dave Kinsman, Hall of Fame coach in Vermont. And that's what kind of sparked my interest in basketball. And from there, I just fell in love with it. And the rest is kind of history. And when I was in college, I got more hooked up with Steve Pratt, and he just got me into coaching, and I just loved it, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, my brother and I played at a Division 4 school in the state of Vermont, and my brother was 6'3", and he was playing center, which you look back at now and it's just kind of funny. But were you stuck in the post? I do remember Jeff Davis at Craftsbury. He was running the point at 6'4". Where did you find yourself?
Well, I played some in the post more than I wanted to. I like to go out and shoot the three. But I played a little in and out. I wasn't a point guard like Jeff, but as I got older, I became more of a two guard because of my greatest strength was my shooting. I was kind of tall, skinny. I didn't like a lot of contact in there. But I played inside some, but I was more of a perimeter shooter, and that's where I like to play.
Now, I can't remember which year it was, but when Trajan Langdon was recruited and went to Duke, they interviewed him, and he said he learned how to shoot just from a book, being from Alaska, and just looking at those pictures and trying to mimic and copy those. Growing up in Hazen, when you were 14, 15 years old, just starting out, who are the biggest influences on you? Did you watch a lot of the NBA, or was it just a one-on-one time with a specific coach or a friend?
So, like I said, when I made the AAU team, Steve Pratt was actually at the time an assistant coach for the team. And he kind of, I don't know how, to be honest with you, I don't know how I made the team, but I did. I think it was just because I was tall. And he pulled me off to the side, and we just worked on form shooting for most of the practice. Until I could shoot with better form, that's where I was. And then Steve, just being Steve, hung with me and built my confidence. And then I started, when I got home, I started shooting all the time on my hoop outside. And once I got so I could shoot it, then I felt, that was the key, and I had some success, and that's where I fell in love with it.
Yeah, so Steve Pratt, Full Package Athletics, definitely has a knack of finding potential, but honing in on how just to develop people's games. How important is it for your players to have someone developing their shot, their game, whether it's someone they hire or just somebody that really works out with them on a really consistent basis?
Yeah, so that's huge. I can remember when I was in high school, like I said, we didn't have a very strong program. And I remember going around and begging teachers at the school to open the gym for us, asking people to, if they could help me work on my game. And there was just nobody there. And I remember being very frustrated and wanting to learn, wanting to get better. And I didn't have the access. So now that as I've become coach of the program, that's one of the things that we try to do here all the time is kids have unlimited access to our gym. Now I'm only allowed to coach, in the summer and during the season, but we have many alumni, former players that also have access that come in, and there's constant instruction going on, free of charge, obviously. And we have a bunch of gym rats here, and in Hardwick, there's not a lot of things to do, to say the least. And we love to provide that gym time, and the kids come in and just play. It's constant. Our summers are every day. There's access to the gym, and they just live in there.
It's definitely a great resource to have and to understand the community. I wish more places did that. I remember at the small school I went to, we actually rented a space to have gym class. And if I had a study hall before, my teacher would let me mop the gym before gym class, but I always figured I could mop and still get about 15 minutes of shots up before class started. And you mentioned my brother and another friend, Josh Fleming, that I played with, and they were good. They were legit high school players. I think I had to work twice as hard to be average, but when you have that love for basketball, there's just this inner drive. Did you have that inner drive, or did that really come from Steve believing in you and other coaches really pulling that out of you?
I had the drive, but I think like a lot of kids, I had no clue how to get there. I needed the guidance and help, and give me a roadmap here about how to get there. I feel like in high school, I was a tall kid that had a lot of potential, and I was okay. I wasn't a superstar, but I was a decent player. But I don't think I did not come anywhere near my potential because I just, like I said, I couldn't find that guidance. And then my brother who was 4 years younger than me. Steve was coaching AAU and started coaching my brother, and that actually led Steve to eventually taking over the Hazen program for 4 years, where he had a lot of success. And I basically, wherever he took my brother, I went to. And even though I was older and out of school, I was doing all the things that they did, and kind of reliving my school days, even though I was out. Yeah. And the way I wanted it to be. And I found I improved tremendously playing pickup basketball, and learned a ton about just the passion for the game, and and basically, like I said, how do you get there? And it was a great experience. And back then, it wasn't like it is now, where you can just go on YouTube and look up a bunch of drills. There was nothing like that. I literally was like, I can remember we had a English teacher who was supposedly a really good high school basketball player. And I remember going into him after school and just, what should I be doing? What can I do? And just begging for anything, yeah, I wish I could go back and do it again now with everything that I know. I think I'd be quite a bit different, a lot better player.
Yeah, but I think that also makes you a great coach, and just what you've learned from just to invest in your kids. I just need to pause for a moment. This next segment is brought to you by Wayne Lafley, Lone Wolf Athletics, Steve Pratt. I heard that you do not believe Michael Jordan is the GOAT, but I find you wearing a Chicago Bulls jersey. Could you just share about this picture? But then we're going to talk a lot about The Last Dance in a little bit. So what is the story with this picture?
So the figures, Wayne. So Wayne and Steve Pratt and Will Voigt and John McDonough and I have a group chat that we talk on a lot. And one of the topics has been who the greatest players are of all time. And I'm somebody who I won't say that Jordan wasn't the best player of all time, but I'm not into the media hype that says he is, without a doubt, the best player of all time. I think it's a pretty close argument. So I've taken some heat from those guys over it. And unfortunately, right in the middle of all of that, one of my former AAU teammates decided to post a picture, this picture that you see here, when I was 16 years old. Apparently, I was a Jordan fan back then. I don't remember that. I'm sure I must have burned the jersey afterward. I don't know, but yeah. So that was a picture of when we were in Memphis, Tennessee, for an AAU tournament there. And actually, on an unrelated note, one of your four other guests you had, Randy Livingston.
Yeah.
So he played in the same tournament, and I remember following his team around, watching him. What a phenomenal player he was. But yeah, so I really appreciate Wayne for sending you that photo. That was really, I took some serious grief over that.
Well, that's it. Nowadays, we always caution our kids about social media, but I guess even back in our day, there are still pictures that will resurface now and again. So let's talk about that debate, just being a basketball junkie myself. Who do you think is the greatest basketball player of all time, or should be more in that conversation with Michael Jordan?
So I feel like there's a few people. The way I judge best player of all time is the overall impact you have on winning and on your team, and how your teammates play with you. And so people like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, even a young Kareem, I felt like impacted winning in a I know people are going to want to crucify me, but in a big way, more than even Jordan. And if you go by the win totals, when Jordan was out that year, when he retired, the Bulls only won 2 fewer games when he was gone.
Right.
And if you took like a Larry Bird out of the lineup, if you check out the statistics, they were abysmal. So that's where I'm at. I feel like there's a lot of media hype that plays into the whole Jordan thing. I think he's great. He might have been the greatest player of all time, but people like Bird, even LeBron, people who make the people around them successful, I think those are the ones I like the best.
And Magic Johnson is definitely my favorite player ever, just growing up during that time. And that Flash, I always enjoyed that part of the game. But having a point guard, and I believe your daughter played point, and unfortunately they were knocked out by Oxbow. So there's a couple questions in there. But first of all, how important is it for your point guard to know what the coach wants and to be really the coach on the floor?
Oh, that's huge to have a point guard. They control the pace. They control where the ball goes. A point guard is the most important position on the floor, particularly I think in high school, because they're just an extension of the coach. And like I said, if you have a skilled point guard, intelligent point guard, they're going to control the whole game. They don't have to score a point. Like I said, with Magic Johnson, he dominated games. And he'd score, he could score 10 points in a game, but he dominated the play. And point guards, they're your connection to the rest of the team. They're gonna oftentimes control the defensive end as well. And on my team, our point guard, we call him the quarterback in our press, and he calls all the signals. And so our point guard controls every aspect of the game for us.
And then let's talk about your daughter. Disappointing loss in the playoffs to Oxbow. They were heavily favored. Fun to watch all season. I get to see one or two games just from afar. How did you walk through your daughter, or with your daughter, that disappointment?
That was hard. That she was devastated by the loss. But for her personally, she did not shoot the ball well at all in that game. And, there's a lot of blame she put on herself. But those are the things that are probably most important in sports, as we all know, is how do you handle this? How do you move on from this? What do you learn from this? And we just talked about her career overall and the impact that, even though she didn't win a state championship, the impact that she had on the program as far as getting other kids committed and making them win more games, first of all. And she and the other seniors were just did a really good job of putting Hazen girls basketball on the map. And it still hangs with her, just like my last loss to West Rutland when I was a senior hangs with me. But it's part of life, and you move on, and you learn from it.
Yeah, you do. And when you set the foundation, that's a starting point that others can build on what you've done. And sometimes that suffering always plays a role. But Aaron Hill making some time. When we talk about Vermont basketball, I forget, it was probably all the guests, but talking about the beauty of Vermont is if you're athletic, you can play multiple sports. How important is it for you as a basketball coach to have your players playing other sports within the high school context?
Oh, fantastic. It's in Vermont, like you said, your kids are so lucky because they can play as many sports as they want, basically. And I think it's so important because most kids aren't going to be the best player on every team they play on each sport. So you get to experience different roles on the team. In soccer, maybe you're or just a role player, and then in basketball, you could be the man. And I think that's really important for life lessons, just to understand and keep you humble and develop interpersonal skills with your teammates. And it helps, even if you're a basketball player. There's been so many studies done that show it actually helps your game to play other sports. And like Steve Nash, playing soccer. Hakeem Olajuwon was, played soccer growing up before he got serious about basketball. So the other sports only add to it. So I always encourage my players to play all the sports and get as many experiences as you can while you're in high school. Now, I will say though, if when you're in high school, you should also pursue your passion, whether that be basketball, soccer, football, whatever. I encourage you to play all three, but I also encourage you to try to focus on your passion year round as well. So you can play the other sports, but you got to find time if you really want to get better to pursue your passion. You got to put something into it. You can't just go with what you got. In my opinion, you got to really try to see how far you can go with it.
No, I agree with that. And not to pursue your parents' passions for you, which can be difficult at points. David Epstein wrote the book Sports Gene, and he just talked about how when kids specialize too early, they might peak as a All-American at 11 years old, but the time they're a junior in high school, they just quit because they're burnt out with that sport. And it's just it's too bad when you see that pressure instead of just following the love of the game, if you will. Aaron Hill talking Vermont basketball. How has basketball changed in this state over the last several years?
I think it's when I look at game film, I think from past and now present, the biggest change I see is I see the influence of Steph Curry. And, the 3-point line has just become bigger and bigger and bigger. And kids shooting not only threes, but, deep threes. I remember several years ago, somebody shot an NBA three. That was everybody oohed and awed over it. Now it's just routine. Somebody shoots from deep. No, people don't even think a thing of it. And so you have to guard farther out on the floor. And as far as we play, we've changed a lot too, just in our style to, more positionless basketball. We don't, granted, I don't have it much size right now, but we don't run a lot of post ups anymore. If we have a mismatch, we will. But it's much more positionless basketball, and we try to develop all our players as basketball players. So I think that's kind of where we're headed. It takes a while, but the NBA and college trickles down, and it affects high school basketball the same way.
It does, and I find that I was reminded of a story. Matt Glass, I think it was either 7th or 8th grade. He only scored 2 points the entire season. But if he was just pinned as, a role player, or he's just going to be a guard, small, but learning all the aspects of the game really benefited him. How important is it not to give up on players early? Not that you ever would, but I do know that sometimes players get cast as that's a junior high knucklehead. We're glad to have him on the team. Or that kid, he's not much of an athlete. He's never going to work in the program, but we'll fit him in. But sometimes those players really develop into great players. How important as a coaches or staffs to really invest in every kid on the court?
So I'm glad you asked that. One of my pet peeves that I have as a coach is these people, especially the adults, that go to elementary schools and a lot of times, like with AAU and stuff, they'll build these all-star teams with these kids in elementary school. And you have no idea at that point who's going to be the best player. And I've done a thing since I took over. I've been coaching 21 years now, and I've kept track in all the years I've done it, from kids when they're in 5th and 6th grade to when they get to me. And only twice in that time has the best player in 5th and 6th grade been the best player on my varsity team.
Wow.
And so it's actually rare, because the kids, when they're young, kids just develop, as at different stages. Some of my best players I've ever had, I had Tim Shedd, who 20 years ago, but he was Mr. Basketball in Vermont. Yeah. And when he was in elementary school, he was not a very good player. He was just tall, gangly, not a standout by any means. And if he had gotten discouraged, or then and quit, we would have never had Mr. Basketball at Hayes.
Right.
And I feel like there's so many adults that are just get too carried away with success at that age, and they, like I said, try to, like, some of these people want to do cuts, and they want to put together these traveling local teams, and then they have an A team and a B team, and you know, and then they don't get me started on then they'll play a little pack in a 2-3 zone at the elementary level to try to win games, and all that just hurts kids. And I feel like at Hazen, I feel like that's a great thing for us at the elementary levels. We don't allow zone defense. We don't allow all-star teams. We split them all up equally because it's not fair to kids either way. If you're really good and then people treat you like you're the greatest thing ever, then you become less coachable. You develop an ego. And then on the other end, if they treat you like you're terrible, you may not even keep playing.
Right.
So that is a pet peeve I have, and because most of the best players we've had have not been great elementary players, or even middle school players.
And yeah, just as you mentioned, like playing multiple sports, you understand a different role of being a best player, coming off the bench or what have you. And I just think that is important for kids to develop. If you wouldn't mind sharing, who are the two that you recall as being some of the top players in elementary, and then they proved that out in their high school years as well?
Well, one is the kid I have right now, Isaiah Baker, who's already scored his 1,000 points at 1,200 points with a year to go. He's pretty good. And a kid named Zach LeMay. Go back, he graduated in 2008.
Yeah.
And those are the two that stand out to me as they were really the best when they were in elementary school and were able to kind of carry it through. And we've had some others that were, solid elementary players that turned into good players, but they weren't like stars, I guess what you call it.
Now, I had the opportunity to interview Chad Copeland the other day, and he went to Twinfield and played at Castleton. And we just kind of joked about how in high school, gyms were packed. But he said, especially on the road, playing in college, it was an empty crowd and just getting used to that. But how can you talk about the community, the fan support of Hardwick with Hazen, especially for your basketball program, which is very successful?
Hardwick is a very special place. I know there's a lot of Hardwick jokes out there that we talk about sometimes, but basketball, there's a lot of towns in Vermont that have successful sports programs and have won more championships than we have. But I don't think there's a program in the state that the program matters as much as it does to our town. It's really kind of like my friend Steve said, the soul of our town. Our program has a soul to it. It really matters to people. Our old principal used to always say he begged me to have good seasons when the school budget was in trouble, because he really felt like that people got excited and they'd pass our budgets. And we fill our town is crazy. We fill the gym usually. For the last several years, we've had all of our home games on live TV in the community and on the internet. And we've actually had to tone that down a little bit because we actually started to lose some of our fans because they were staying home to watch the games. But no, our town is always has been. It's a special place. And the basketball program matters here. It's not just a sport here. It's really part of something that people here are proud of. And something that the kids understand, and our alumni stay very involved in our program. We run a summer league that I think is pretty unique compared to other places. Is we don't play other high school teams in our summer league. All of our teams in our high school summer league are alumni. And college players, and they bring some of their friends in from local colleges and stuff. But yeah, we play against alumni all summer long. And that's been a huge thing for us because those guys, we got guys from Johnson State, Linden, good players. So, our kids get our butts kicked all summer, but it toughens us up. So like I said, it's just, Hardwick really is unique in that, how important the basketball program is to it and the pride people take, in the program.
And I love that idea with your summer league because that keeps alumni involved, and then your kids are playing against bigger, stronger players with more experience. I want to talk about rivalries a little bit. I make no bones about it. Being here in Waterbury, we've played Williamstown year after year, and we're Division 2, they're Division 3, but they've beat us, we beat them, but losing to them, uh, it's a rivalry for me. Uh, their boys program has been very successful as well. Could you talk about facing Coach Carrier and seeing Williamstown? It seems like you two are the top two teams in Division 3. But talk about rivalries, talk about Williamstown. How many championships would you have if Williamstown wasn't around?
So Williamstown. So the first 10 years I coached before Jack, we never lost to Williamstown. We won 22 straight games, pounded them. And then in 2010, Jack was there, and they'd already in 2009, before Jack, they'd started to kind of put it together a little bit. And then they went on, they really got their program rolling, as you've seen. And we have quite a little rivalry with those guys. And we've met in the finals. We've met, at the odd a few times. And it's kind of one of those things that there, it seems like people from Williamstown are at half our games, and a bunch of our fans are at half their games. And even if you don't match up, you're always just kind of looking ahead to see, where's Williamstown? What are they, we certainly use them to measure ourselves, and I have a feeling they probably do the same thing with us. It's a really turned into quite a rivalry. And it's fun. It's what high school sports should be about. And we're really, they've gotten us a few times, but we've gotten them too. There's one loss there that in 2017 when we were going for back-to-back, and we'd beaten them in 2016 in the final. And then they got us in 2017. That one still, for me, still stings quite a bit, but they got a great program, no question about it. Jack's done a wonderful job over there. And we're looking to hopefully have more fun games with them in the future.
Definitely. Aaron, we'll get you out in a couple questions, but I just want to talk about the Barry Auditorium, Harwood girls varsity. They won their semifinal game on a Wednesday, and then it was told that they were not able to participate in the championship game. First time in the odd in 40 years. It was a remarkable experience. I'm the assistant to the assistant at the end of the bench, but I'm still on the floor. It was phenomenal. As a player, I never made it there. Can you just talk, in your opinion, why you think the Barry Odd is so special, especially during those playoff runs?
Yeah, there's no better place to play. Unfortunately, I was like you. My dream was to play at the Odd as a player, and that didn't happen, and I was devastated. But as a coach, I've been fortunate enough to be there quite a few times, and it's just an amazing atmosphere. It's about what I would say the perfect size for Vermont basketball. You fill it, and with the acoustics, it feels like there's 30,000 people in there instead of 2,000 people. Right. And it's all filled with so many of the locals. You look on the front row of the bleachers, and you'll see all these older people that have been there for 40 years watching games, and so there's so much history to it. It's a really special place. If you gave me the option of going to Patrick Gym to play games or stay at the Odd, I would be angry if they told us we had to play at Patrick. I think we're the luckiest ones around. And there was a rumor a few years ago that maybe they'd move it away from the Odd. And that certainly, we would have a revolt there. I think that place is just such a special place with so many special memories and so much history, and the atmosphere is crazy. USA Today said it was one of the best places to play in the country about 10 years ago. Yeah. So it's just a very awesome place, and a place that it can be hard for kids to play in for the first time if they've never had that experience. I think some of the teams that get to go more often, it can be an advantage because you know what to expect when you get there. And when you don't know, it can be overwhelming when that you come up those steps to take the floor and that roar of the crowd hits you. But I just love it. That's one of my favorite things about coaching is the odd.
It's a phenomenal place. And again, this episode is brought to you by Lone Wolf Athletics. So you can thank Wayne Lafley for that picture behind me.
I will. I will. Wayne and I will have a nice conversation.
Aaron, I just want to get you out on this. With this current pandemic, summer league, we hope will happen. Some colleges are saying fall sports may not happen, even basketball being a fall into winter sport. How are you preparing for your guys for summer basketball? How are you really trying to encourage people that some are getting depressed, discouraged during this part, but knowing your role as a coach, a role model, a hero to so many, how are you taking on that responsibility to really encourage people and kind of lead them through this pandemic?
Well, I think communication is the biggest thing. Just, having contact, like we at school, even as a teacher, we try to stay in contact with all our kids and, almost on a daily basis, some kind of normalcy. In the summer, we're kind of already trying to figure out what are we going to do if there's no summer league. We may have some full package athletics did the Make a Million in May.
Yeah.
Shots in May. We're going to try to probably do some things like that where you record number of shots you make in a day, record the number of minutes you do on specific drills, and then post it on a sheet online. We'll have a little competition, maybe give out T-shirts to the kids who are the top for each category, some things like that to make it fun and motivate them if we can't get into the gym. I'm hopeful at the very least we'll be able to do some skill work and some small game stuff. I don't know if the whole summer league will happen, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get some kind of basketball in.
Definitely. Aaron Hill, coach at Hazen Union. Thanks again for joining us. I always say one last question, and I always come up with one more. Who is your favorite NBA team, or do you even like to watch the NBA? And if so, which player as well?
I watch all forms of basketball. I'm a Celtics fan. My favorite player, I love Marcus Smart's heart and energy. I just wish he'd not shoot so many threes. but I love Marcus Smart. I like Jason Tatum. Those are players I really like. Kawhi Leonard. The way he plays both ends of the floor. And Giannis, my son is obsessed with Giannis. So he's right up there too. I like two guys that don't talk about themselves, don't use the word, don't say I very much.
Yeah.
Those kind of players are my favorite. So you won't see me cheering for LeBron James very much.
Or Michael Jordan, I guess.
Or Michael Jordan.
Hey, Aaron, thank you so much. I'm working on a roundtable. I'd love to get you, Will, Wayne, and Steve to come on and just talk all things basketball from different levels. I love hearing your story, and I think it's important during this time of quarantine where we tell each other's stories so we can learn from them and just grow in our own experience. So thanks again for making the time.
I think that'd be awesome. I look forward to it.
And again, that's Aaron Hill, the Hazen Wildcats, the original Wildcats. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with other great interviews. We have Coach Tommy Brennan coming on next week and Jermaine Mopagila just featuring that UVM miracle season when they won against Syracuse. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks again. At Jay Fuller Interviews on YouTube and Facebook is where you can find me and all of these great interviews.